Welcome back to Keeping It Fresh. My next guest, if you don't have an idea already, he was a member of the Honolulu Blue and Silver of the Detroit Lions for 2 seasons. Before that, he was drafted by the Seattle Seahawks in 2011. And before that, was a member of the University of Georgia's Bulldogs football program, and now currently works overseas for the NFL Academy, helping recruit young international talent into the NFL. It's the one and only and talented Mr. Kris Durham. Kris, thank you so much for joining me. This is awesome. So, without further ado, let's get started. First, tell me about your time growing up in Georgia, and did you always know that you wanted to be a Georgia Bulldog?
So yeah, grew up in Calhoun, small town, kind of a football town. So we won when I was in high school. I think we went like six in a row, region champions and all that stuff. So my high school head coach is kind of a legend in Georgia, Coach Lamb. But yeah, so my recruitment to Georgia was kind of through him. So his dad had been a high school head coach for many years there in Georgia, and then he worked on staff there at the university. And so when I started getting recruited, we kind of passed the tape from my highlight tape from Coach Lamb to his dad, who got it into the hands of Coach Richt and his staff, and kind of led from there. But growing up in Georgia, it was kind of an easy decision. So my dad ran track there. I grew up a Georgia fan. So when they offered, I knew that's where I wanted to go. So I committed pretty much the next day.
Wow, talk about a child, like a childhood dream come true for you. Just growing up, watching, obviously your dad, you just said your father ran track at the University of
Yep.
Georgia, and you grew up watching Bulldog football your entire life, and now you are a part of that historic program. So now when you arrive, you're thrown into a gauntlet of the Southeastern Conference during that time. But as a freshman, take me through walking into that locker room for the first time.
So it wasn't as common back then, but I graduated early. So I came in kind of second semester senior year. So I was 17 years old walking into what they were the SEC champions in 2005. So I walked in January of 2006. So coming in, they're defending SEC champs, great place to go to school. Walked in with Matthew with Stafford. He was one of the guys who I moved in with their freshman year. So got to know him and the five other guys that enrolled early. Got to know a lot of the freshman class that had come in before me. So, it was exciting, a little bit nervous. I was a little undersized, even though I was tall, I was a bit skinny. But yeah, it was a really cool first semester trying to learn the game, pick up the speed of the game, the playbook, build some strength. And I think that's what the reason I was able to play early on my freshman year was because of the coming in to the school that semester early and having the time to develop and learn the playbook and get accustomed to college football.
And how were you able to get into the program so early through coming in as a 17-year-old versus
Mhm.
some of these guys, some of these kids that are going into programs now, they're 18, 19 years old or even 20 years old going into their programs for the first time, but you went in as a 17-year-old. So tell me how that came to be.
Um, so again, like I said, mentioned it was a bit before its time. A lot of kids do it now. So a lot of guys graduate high school semester early. They enroll in the spring, kind of their second semester. So when I was getting recruited by Coach Mike Bobo, who's still the offensive coordinator there now with Coach Smart, he mentioned it. He was like, "Hey, would this be something you're interested in?" And didn't know much about it, but yeah, I was like, "Yeah, I'll look into it." Even though I'd have to forfeit playing basketball my senior year and running track my senior year and doing all that, I knew what my future held. So looked into it. My school board and my teachers said I could do it, so I ended up going to summer school between my junior and senior year. Picked up a couple extra credits and your English, your math, science, social studies, that sort of stuff. Took a few courses to kind of reclaim those credits, and I was able to graduate there in December and enroll in January.
Oh, wow. Wow, wow, that's impressive. That's definitely impressive. I know I couldn't do that when I was, that's for sure. So despite in 2010 jumping ahead, despite in 2010, you guys had a 6-7 record. You guys ended your season memorable win over Georgia Tech in Athens. what do you call about that day, your senior day experience, and what are some of your other favorite memorable games as a dog?
That game was special. It's your senior night. So coming in, last time I'll ever play in Sanford Stadium, knowing that having my family come on the field for that recognition, pregame was always special. And I had my family there, my sister there, her now husband, Blake there, and they were both tech grads. My sister and her husband are both went to the Georgia Tech. So since they were Georgia Tech grads, it was kind of fun to have them on the field supporting Georgia on that day. But yeah, the game itself was interesting. I think we went back and forth. I had a decent game. Took a screen for a touchdown, which was very memorable in my career. But then I think I ended up having three or four more catches that kind of helped lead to touchdown drives. So yeah, it was a good way to end my last game there at Georgia before the bowl game and kind of make us bowl eligible because, like you mentioned, it was not the best record, but we were able to get bowl eligible and off that game and kind of ride off into the sunset into the pro career.
Yeah, that's yeah, because I know Georgia, Georgia back then, about 10, 15 years ago, record wise, not, like not the, but now you look at the last couple of years that Georgia's put together, and it's very, very impressive. They went back to the powerhouse that everyone knows and everyone is intimidated by because you with you being an alumni of that program, you got Georgia football. It's intimidating. It's intimidating for anybody to go up against. Um, so Kris, this is now one of my favorite parts I've done with every guest that's ever come on my shows. It's called Rapid Fire Seven. Just seven quick questions, just to one or two word answers. Just to know Kris Durham. Who is he? What does he like? What does he like to do? So first, I'm going to start off with your favorite place to eat at Georgia's campus.
University of Georgia. Oh, man, it's been so long since I've been back. Oh, what's the name of that place? I can see it. I'm blanking on the name of it because it's been like years since I've been back. Oh, you put me on the spot. I'm not gonna remember the name of it. But I do know they have the epic cheesecake. So
There you go. I'll take that. All right. Fa favorite music artist slash band of all time.
I don't listen to enough music. You're putting things on me that I don't really I don't really do. Let's see, music artist of all time. Man, I don't know. I listen to a lot of Morgan Wallen right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Uh, so as I know you've spent some time you're over in Europe.
Mhm.
Your favorite your favorite place to go visit over, whether if it's in Paris,
Yeah.
whether in France, Italy, England, favorite spot to go.
I think Italy kind of holds a special place in my heart. So, um, Colosseum, things like that, going to see, the Duomo there in Florence, or, sitting there going to see some of that stuff. Those are probably places that I connect with and relate to because of living over in Europe. So I really enjoy that.
Your favorite movie of all time.
Uh, so there's probably two. I like Gladiator and Shawshank Redemption.
All right.
Yeah,
Uh, your favorite memory off the field as a member of the Honolulu Blue and Silver.
off the field. Favorite memory. Honestly, a good memory that I have is when they had the softball tournament. So I think that year it was Nate and Tully kind of put it on. Nate Burleson and Stephen Tully was kind of the first year that we did it. At a charity softball game. That was a lot of fun. And then just your typical, going out after games after a big win. But then again, sorry, I'm giving you a few. I think one of the most epic times we ever had was that we had a preseason game uh, there in Detroit, and afterwards we went to an Eminem Rihanna concert that evening at Comerica. So, that was pretty cool. Play a game and then go across the street for a concert.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that is. Yeah, those softball games were so much fun when they had them. Right
Yeah,
behind me, Sam Martin. He put on a few of them during his
yeah.
when he was still with the Lions, and it was that was a those were a lot of fun. So, what are the coolest things about living over, because obviously you grew up in Georgia, grew up in the United States, but now you live overseas in Europe. What are some of the coolest things about living in Europe that some people that here in the United States that never left the country, never vacationed in Europe, what are the coolest things about it?
I think it's just seeing culture, seeing different things like culture, food, you know, history is kind of very much alive over here, more so than the US because you see it in the buildings when you walk down the street. Things of that nature are really cool. I think the other part of it is just getting to be comfortable, being uncomfortable. If that makes sense. Because you're the expat or you're the foreigner in that sense. So you have to be comfortable understanding someone else's culture because things don't operate how they do at home. I think that's kind of a unique experience and something really cool to get used to, and just understanding how people operate and tick, and just learning to adjust and adapt.
Yeah, wow. Okay. And your favorite activity to do with your wife when you and her have when you have free time, when you guys have time off.
Um, I like to travel a lot, but I would say our favorite activity is probably watching a movie or watching a TV show, kind of binge watching that and eating popcorn on the couch. I'd say just relaxing.
Watching Shawshank Redemption, probably. Uh,
I do enjoy that one. Do enjoy
so
that one.
all right. So now so now heading into your pro career, it's draft day 2011. Looking back, take us through your experience on draft day. Was there a team you really wanted to play for, like Atlanta being from Georgia, or were you just overall just nervous about getting a phone call throughout the 3 days of the NFL draft process?
I think I think that my draft day, I knew I wasn't going to go probably in the first 2 days. So day three was kind of my day. It was going to be, you know, make or break type situation. So I had been projected anywhere from about fifth to seventh, had heard my name potentially in the fourth with a few teams. But I had to bet on it that day. I thought I was going to Chicago, thought I was going to the Bears, is who I would have bet on. But Seattle calls me in the fourth, and I was lucky enough to be drafted there by Pete Carroll and John Schneider and that group, and go spend some time out in Seattle there for a year and some change before I came to Detroit.
Yeah, and now you're the coach that drafted you, Pete Carroll. He's back in the he's on back in the NFL scene. He's head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, so that's going to be
Mhm.
very interesting to see how that unfolds in September, or not even September, probably like in
Yeah.
July when training camps begin. So that will be a lot of fun. So you get to Seattle. Unfortunately, you had a few injuries
Mhm.
that kind of derailed your first couple seasons in the league. So you ultimately landed in Detroit, reunited with your fellow Bulldog and Matthew Stafford. Was that a major part of your decision process in free agency to say, you know what? Let's see, I want to, reunite with my old college quarterback.
Yeah, so when I got released from Seattle, there in my second year, I had a few different offers to go places. I was sitting there trying to decide where to go. Do I go like to Seattle and practice squad? Do I go to Detroit? Do I go to a couple other places that had, given me an opportunity? Well, because of my relationship there with Matthew, it kind of made the decision easy. I had a chance to go in, already know the quarterback, already have a relationship with him, somebody who could really help me understand not only just like the ins and outs of the facility, the building, the offense, but also the community and what's going on there. Because Matthew had already been, in Detroit for, let's see, it was 2009, 10, 11. So he's going on his fourth year.
Yeah.
Um, so, he's sitting there very experienced. I'd been to Detroit to see him and visit him a couple of times and seen some games. So obviously there was a lot of support there. And even the year before I got there, I went down to New Orleans in 2011 to watch the playoff game. So again, very big supporter of his still to this day. So that would made the decision pretty easy so that I could go see him and spend time with the Lions because it's kind of a dream come true to reunite with Matthew and those guys that I met on previous visits there in Detroit.
Yeah, and you mentioned getting to Detroit, watching Matthew and the Lions in 2011 in that playoff game
Mhm.
in New Orleans, which was the first time they made the postseason since 1999. But that roster that year, you had speedsters like Joy Bell and Javid Best. You had Stephon Logan, Nate Burleson, Calvin Hall of Famer Calvin Johnson. Take us through the first couple of months with the Lions. I mean, we talked about you walking in as a 17-year-old into the Georgia locker room, but now you're walking into a new NFL locker room. Was it intimidating walking into that one as a sophomore, even though
Yeah.
the team finished at 4-12 that year? What did you learn from that season? How get
Um,
you for the next one?
I think it's a very different feeling than when I was in Seattle. It's a very different team, very different dynamic. Seattle had a lot of success. The Lions had not had quite as much success. Um, but if there was one thing I could rely on was just, again, everybody talks about the Detroit grit. That team had a lot of grit. Some of the outcomes didn't necessarily go our way, but if one thing I did learn was just learn how to be a pro while I was in that building. Because the first day when I walked in, Matthew's kind of showing me a bit of the ropes, but Sean Jefferson, the receiver coach at the time, pulled me aside and he was like, if you want to be great, follow him. And he pointed over to Calvin. So you have great mentors like Calvin, like Nate B. It makes it really easy to know how to be a professional when you have guys who, hey, one's potential Hall of Famer who now is a Hall of Famer, and Nate who had been doing it for probably about 10 years at the time. You can learn a lot from guys like that. And that's really what kind of helped propel my career into playing a little bit more. And then, ultimately, I got a couple extra years out of it just because of the fact that I learned how to really focus in and do the right things.
Yeah, I mean, it was just I can just the impact that Megatron left, not just off the field, but what he left on the field. Granted, his career also was cut short as well with Detroit, but I can't even imagine just as a sophomore player learning from someone that's from someone that like that stature like Calvin who'd been there since 2008 so that would have been his fifth or sixth season at that point. So um you re-signed with the Lions in 2013. The roster, in my opinion, was the best talented roster to not reach the playoffs or reach a playoff game because you got added guys like Reggie Bush, Golver Quinn, drafted Ezekiel Ansah, Darius Slay, Sam Martin, a great friend of mine. With all that talent that the team had, plus the experience you gained last year, were you thinking going into the 2013 season that group could have done something that year other than going, unfortunately, 7-9?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, looking back on it, like even if you look at all the way to when we had the bye week, I think we may have been like 6-3. All we needed to do was win two games out of the next like six or seven to actually make the playoffs that year, due to kind of the NFC North being a bit down, so to speak. And we just couldn't put it together. For whatever reason that was, the ball just didn't bounce the right way for us. But yeah, like you said, I think it was a very talented roster. I think it was a very well coached team. But the margins are so slim in the NFL that you got to have people healthy at the right time. You got to have the ball bounce at the right time. You can't make costly turnovers. Like there's a lot of variables that just went against us that were just, unfortunate. So, a lot of great players that went on to have long, outstanding careers that were on that team. I mean, you just mentioned a lot of them. Like Nate had a great career. Calvin had a great career. And Dominican Sue, Nick,
Oh,
Big Nick. I mean, you had turn around and then you had Matthew, you have, Tulloch, you have Slay, you had Glover. Like, I mean, you look at GQ back there leading the defense. You got, Slay out there as a young DB. Our special teams was really good. Um, it's just one of those things where you're like, dang, man, like, how did we not go further? And it's because the margin's so slim in that league that we didn't put it together at the right time that we needed to.